point, but you gotta see mine too.
Okay.
Are we rolling on the video?
It should be. Looks like it.
Good evening. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you to the veterans and their family for their sacrifice. Always appreciated. Yeah, you know where it's at. I'll get to it. Okay. Hopefully we can do this in about an hour and a half, but I guess whatever time it takes to take. Thanks everyone for coming. I think everybody has a copy. Everything is up to the point that we left off last week. I worked on it and finished it up today on my side, and you can look at the changes that were made. I think there was $150,000 added into the budget in anticipating selling the Public Works building, and council asked to eliminate all of the contingencies. I put all the contingencies back from other things. So, suggestions from the council of where we're going to change the last deficit was $106,700. That was adding in $150,000 for the sale, and minus and adding in all the $70,000 in contingency. So we were at 3, then we went to 349.2, and then 106.7. So suggestions.
Mayor, I did some work on the budget. And, last week we talked about coming in and trying to be willing to compromise on some of the things that each one of us want done. And with that spirit in mind, what I attempted to do was try to balance this budget as best I could, based upon what the discussions were for the past couple of weeks. If these suggestions go through and are approved, then what this budget would include would be, and there's some questions that have to be answered, let me say that up front, but if everything works out, what this budget would include is full funding for water exploration and wells, hopefully full funding for the police department that we talked about. It would include sidewalks that Councilmember McCormick has requested to be funded. It would also include 2 employees for the Public Works Department. It would also include a truck and a mini excavator for Public Works, and an increase in the starting pay for the police department. Now, is it going to be perfect? Is everybody going to get exactly what they want? No, because there's more wants than there is money. But the attempt here was to try to make this balance and compromise on what we're trying to do in order to, get the budget finished and pushed through. What I've given the council, and this is not my show here, I'm just one person. These are, again, suggestions based upon what we talked about previously. So, please, I encourage everyone to look at it, read it, and give feedback on please tell us, say something about what you see and what you like, what you don't like. But basically, if we were able to sell the Public Works building for about $124,000, I know it was $150,000 was what was suggested, but I'm guessing by the time you take out advertising, paying the fees for everything that's involved with, the sale of the property, we're probably going to be somewhere around $124,000. That's just my best guess, because you're going to have to pay an auction year. You're going to have to do like advertising on it. It's $124,000. Last week let me say this, last week, the bottom line in the red was $349,800. So if we were able to increase the revenues by $124,000, which I think is a reasonable number for the sale of that property, if there was 5 additional homes that were built in Statham, we're not talking about a whole subdivision, but if there was 5 additional homes that were built here, that would give us an increase based upon the numbers that were given in this budget of $49,800. That's, $4,800 from line 84, which is the new construction permits for residential. And that's, if you did 5 homes times $960, that would give you $4,800. Building on that 5-home premise, if you look at line item 114, which is water taps, if you added 5 additional homes, that's $3,000 a water tap, which would give you $15,000. And then line item 120, sewer taps, 5 additional homes, times $6,000 for water taps would give you $30,000. So if you add that increased revenue total together, if my math is correct, that's $173,800. Now, that still leaves us in the red, which means that we would need to make some cuts. And the biggest cuts would be in the following areas. Line item 151, which is the beautification and tree committee, got $12,000 out of it to do away with the signs. The other areas are contingency. If we cut the contingency out of the departments and put leave $20,000 of contingency in the budget, that would save us a total of roughly $52,500, I believe. And the biggest decreases in the budget, and before I say this, mind you, I'm not advocating cutting the police department when I say this. I'm asking, is it possible to purchase the new interceptors and the upfitting and the brush guards out of the remaining fund balance for fiscal year 2021? If we can do all of that, that will be a total decrease in expenditures of $220,000. Now that gives us a little bit on the other side where we have more revenue than expenditures. But that brings us to the increase in the police department funding to raise them from the starting salary of $40,000 to $44,000. Just recently I was told that Clark County, or Athens Clark County, increased their starting pay for police officers. I have not verified this, but I was told this, but $47,000 without any experience. I'll have to double check and verify that, but that's my understanding. If we can increase the starting pay from $40,000 to $44,000, that's $4,000 times 11, that's $44,000, which should balance us out to $0. That's just a suggestion, try to get this moving forward. I welcome any input. I would request that we please don't fight, that we try to get this knocked out, and that, we find solutions some way, somehow.
Well, I have a question. What about the cost of living for all employees?
That was not included this day.
Was what?
It was not included.
I know it was not. That's why I asked, what about it? Are we saying that going out here and trying to build sidewalks everywhere is more important than paying these people and keeping them here? We've got a good bunch, but we're gonna lose them one by one if we don't get that paid up.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't have to do all the sidewalks at one time. We can do a section each budget until we complete it. But if we don't pay these people and get them up where everybody else in the surrounding areas are, they're gonna be like a few more that we've had to leave. They're gonna be working for them, not us.
I would not disagree with that, Ms. Betty. I just, working off of what we were told last meeting.
Well, I tried to talk about the pay scale last meeting, but I got shot down and everybody just moved on over what I had to say about the cost of living for the employees.
Well, I mean, if we have one of the larger sidewalk projects and the other one it's not so big. I mean, we could drop that smaller sidewalk project and put that into the pay increases for the city, pay and benefits for the city employees. And that would free up about $60,000. And I'm willing to work or compromise or do whatever it takes to, make this thing work. But I agree about where Statham is at on the pay. We're at the bottom of the pay scale in about every category, from the police to public works to all the way up to certain positions. We're at the bottom. So I kind of agree with Ms. Betty there about the pay. But what would it cost for 3% cost of living if we're going to do $4,000 for the police department? What would it be for the other 10 employees for the city? Would it be 3% of the budget for the?
Just given to all everyone. With the 3% and. This one, I thought I gave it back to you. So they figured up the 3% in each.
I think we need to figure it 3 and 5. I mean, with the way things are going up daily, 3% is not going to get you too far.
Well, what I put in was 3% per. 1,000 for anyone that was working through COVID as a bonus, and then boosting the salaries of the police department, post-certified officer, which I think also includes the chief and the captain. And then the one that's going to be replaced, that was CJ, and then 2 more officers is what the chief is asking for. So it would bring them up, if I'm not mistaken, to about 44,000 starting salary.
Mayor, I think you got a question from him.
Yes.
Did you compare us with, like, other police departments our size? Evans Clark County is not comparison, as far as I'm concerned, with police departments.
Yes, ma'am.
Because that's a large police department. Did you compare it with other salaries around?
I'm going based off the discussion with you. I'm going off the discussion I had with the chief.
Chief, you want to add something?
Yeah.
For the benefit of everyone then?
I mean, it happens to me, it's not a comparison. When you talk about per capita, you know, and it's the rate, so.
No, I agree with you, it's not. But when you have, we have departments like, we have like Watkins,
Yeah.
roughly around the same where we are, but paying 21 an hour, which is 42, 43. And wherever you come in with City of Winder, between 30.24 and 59.579 is top. But that's what experience and degrees, whatever you may have.
Starting salary.
At 30,
Thank you.
at 38. The City of Commerce, they start out at 38, 44, 3. Now, they come in there already post-certified, so it's 43.
Did you get that from the
There's been a lot of
the
it done.
website?
Yeah.
I'm talking about state website, but you know.
GMA.
GMS, yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I figured, just want to check, make sure of that. That was just, I thought of trying to, you know, input the rate.
We're blessed not to have the trouble that happened in fact. We don't want to,
Yeah.
but you're welcome to have a copy of what I have as well.
No, I can go on there, okay. That's fine, I shouldn't, and did you get my email today? Well, I had emailed you about a copy of this earlier, but, okay.
But as you can see on this, there's the 3% and what it works out to for each. Now, the 3% does not obviously come into play for like the replacement and the two new that are being asked for, because they're not here right now. But the starting salary would be boosted to 44,816. Based on the numbers that I came up with. True, there are stuff that I removed in order to get to this, but some of the things that were mentioned, Councilwoman Lau did say about trying to retain good employees, and the only way we're going to do that is to be more competitive. So I took that into consideration. Councilman Venable had mentioned about possible cost of living. I took that into account, and also someone, and I don't know who, mentioned about working through the COVID and bonuses. I don't know if that was someone in the audience or if it was someone on the council. I don't recall. But I took those three things in. In order to get those three in, I had to make cuts, and that's what I've been working on until late this afternoon, until I took a dinner. So I say that's what this work session is about.
So Mayor, the total cost for a cost of living increase and to increase the police department starting salary to 44,800, you said?
It's up there at the top of that. It says 44,816. It's a 12% starting pay increase. So any new officer that would come in would be at that, and then bumping the existing to bring them up in line with that, so that you're not bringing in officers at a higher pay than the people that have actually been putting in the efforts thus far and working through the COVID. So
everybody in place would benefit, including the new hires.
yeah, and then the new hires wouldn't get 3%, they would get 12 to bring them in line with that higher pay.
So the total for the 3% cost of living increase, along with the starting salary increase for the police department, total would be $58,976.
Yes, but that also includes the
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah,
So obviously, next year, that wouldn't be on there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would
that's
be a
everything
one-time
total.
thing. And then you evaluate the cost of living next year on its own merits.
Are you supposed to get cost of living every year?
Well, it's kind of like betting on your overtime. You don't count on your overtime, so no, I mean, it's not, I don't know of any government agencies that say that it is a set thing. I did work for a company that every year you got a cost of living,
Yeah.
but that was 30, 40 years ago, so times have
It's really
changed.
at the discretion of the mayor.
But, so, as I say, next year you evaluate it based on the revenues, and hopefully all the revenues are gonna go up next year because of, getting some homes built and some little better tax base and adding to the, water bills, the sewer bills. But, there again, you can't count on something that's not there yet. But if it happens, then you say, well, we can afford to do another cost of living next year. This is just this year, anyway.
Is there anything wrong with us using the balance of the funds in this year to purchase the two new interceptors now so we can A, utilize all the money that's available to us, and B, back those purchases out of the police department's budget to get the raises and the increase in pay done?
Take it out,
I know
unbalanced.
we have the funds.
We didn't leave any sort of a fund balance for the FY '21. So we didn't leave anything extra. When we amended, because you remember we amended the FY '21 budget twice. We amended it to match more in line with the actual revenue that we were bringing in. And then at the same time, with the actual revenue that we were bringing in, we sold the house there on Broad Street, which was, at the time, we didn't budget for that. So when we amended the budget, we included that as part of the revenue, so that could be part of, the offset of the expenditures. And then we also added the COVID relief funds that we received when we amended the budget. So it was a zero balance. I mean, we didn't leave anything for fund balance for FY '21. We cut everything pretty close to try to be as accurate as possible in our revenue and our expenditures. And we've been pushing it pretty close.
It looked like the other night that we had, 1.176. The difference on the very last page, it says 1.176. And I know 960,000 of that is, was the grants, correct?
With the ARC
Yeah,
funds
the
that we
ARC
left in
funds.
there.
Okay.
Right, but you're not taking into account the remainder of the expenditures for the rest of this fiscal year.
Okay.
And it's, you don't want to base your current budget off of what's left or what's not left of the year prior. If you want to leave a fund balance when you're budgeting, then that's something that you are saving for. Typically you're saving a fund balance because you have a particular project that you want to build up an account to be able to pay for. You wouldn't typically want to use a fund balance to purchase police vehicles because that is a capital expenditure and that's something that you would want to account for capital. So you would really want to try to put that in the budget.
So there's no there aren't any funds available in the police department's budget either.
There is not.
There is not.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna mention it again. I know there are those that don't like the idea, but, you know, I brought this subject up of impact fees. This is how you put funds aside for police department and parks and recreation. And you can designate a percentage, and those come from new homes. It might be $2,000 added to the price of that home. When the builder does it, it might be $3,000. It just depends on how you set that up. But it doesn't affect the existing homes. It's only the homes that are being built, and you designate, say, 40% goes to parks and recreation and improvements, and 60% goes to building a permanent police department, for instance. And, you know, not every municipality has them. Some have their own thoughts, but I know of ones that have them, and it's working very well for them, and they're able to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do. And I had a meeting with all of the mayors from Barrett County the other day on Tuesday, and we discussed that and who has and who doesn't and how it's working out. But, you know, those are things that, unfortunately, you do an impact fee, the monies aren't going to be available like tomorrow, but you can put them aside and designate where they go, and then be able to do projects that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. Yes?
Since the last meeting, I've had citizens contacting me and talking to me, emailing me, doing all kinds of things, but reaching out to tell me that since I was the voice of their silent voice at the other end of the Zoom meetings, they wanted me to bring up to the council that citizens' priority at this stage is clean drinking water, better sewage, and keeping our police department up to date so that our city is safe. The things they were not interested in was sidewalks and beautification at this stage. That is something they want postponed, and this is what citizens are telling me, not just me saying it, but what the citizens are saying. And since they are not all here in force, hopefully they're listening at home, and I am the voice that they've been hearing. That's what the city wants the council to come up with. The mayor has given you a budget that is zeroed out. You really need to consider that, and I'm talking to you not as the mayor's wife, but as a concerned citizen. His job is to give you a balanced budget. It is balanced. What does it offer the city? Working on the city wells, working on the city sewage, getting the police department up to snuff, because they know we have a bad drug thing in our town, and they want 24-hour police department. They're not concerned about sidewalks right now. They're not concerned about flowers. If you look on concerned citizens, that is what you are seeing. And even though the citizens may not be voting citizens, they have a 30666 zip code, and their voices should count. And as city council members, you better start listening to those folks. Okay? That is what they want, and that's what they want you to think about and to come up with a budget. We have been sitting through hours and hours and hours of you guys all adding things and not looking at the bottom line, which is, what does the citizens want for our city? That is what they want. That is their priority. Clean drinking water, being able to flush your toilets, and knowing that the police are on duty 24/7. There. Folks at home, I hope I voiced what you've asked me to voice. I have said it.
Thank you.
Mayor, I hate to
Yes, Chief.
interrupt. Dwight, you have a few minutes to need to speak.
Okay.
Anyone else have any comments while we wait for Councilman to return? Yes?
I have a few. I am a citizen and I do live within the city. And A, like I said, if you're in general. As far as citizens and the needs and wants of the council and or the government and or the city, with its citizens, all is gonna kind of mesh in different ways. Now, one of the biggest things I totally agree with is we do need clean water, we do not. We're purchasing a tremendous amount. It's going to take actually 2 wells within this community in the future to provide what's happening around us. But with that, it's also going to bring a lot of revenue. The old saying, sometimes you have to pay forward to get it back. I totally believe in that. I do think we moved here on the end of after the police force not being as well as it should have been, and having the city to settle lawsuits. It did have effect on the community, and as many communities, they're dealing with drugs. We're not the only ones, but it is here. So I do believe in a police force. I do believe funding. I also believe in the government being efficient with areas of its budget, because not only do I want water, police, 24 hours, but I do want a beautiful community. I do want parks. I do want flowers. I do want the beautification, because that also is a deterrent. And if more and more people come in here and see what people are doing, it's kind of like a chain effect. More and more people start taking pride, and you see that more and more people start coming out. And an involved community has also led to less crime, because you are out there presenting yourself in a better way. A couple things about the budget. I know this has been brought up several times. I do believe that the city needs to have a pay scale. It needs to have job titles and job descriptions. I don't know how you can decide when someone comes in what their pay can be if they don't even have a title or a description. It's anywhere I've gone, I've worked for government, I've worked for the private sector. When I went in for my interview, advertising had a job title, had a job description. Upon the interview, pay was discussed. In some jobs, even if you come in with a master's compared to a bachelor's to no education, some jobs don't lean heavily on the education. So you would want to know, does this job need this? And that's where you decide your pay. Or if I have a person here and this person has here, and that does affect with education, then you would know, well, this person could get more money. And you also have to look at, okay, if someone gets certified, what's the next step up? They're reclassified, so where would their pay go? It can't be just pick and choose. And as I'm reviewing this 3%, that 3% becomes a stability of a wage marker for a job position. You don't go down from there. So you have to always realize some things have a one-time impact, some things have a continued impact. So when you decide on raises, it's combined, and then cost of living combined, and then another wage. So then you can hike up a lot of wages, salaries, in a pretty good chunk. So you as a community, as a government, I would hope that would be one of the things that we're going to look at is implementing job titles, job descriptions with classifications and salaries. And it also tells the employees, I went out and I got certified. Well, not only did I get a piece of paper, but I have something that monetary is going to back it up. And this is to have an understanding that no matter where we're at, employees come and employees go. You can't just keep on giving raises because you're fearful of an employee leaving. You have to have that base of where that job is. There's the bottom and there's the top. The other thing is, that has been discussed here, is, you know, as we grow the community, and it's happening, and it's gonna happen with even around our community, we still need united. We need to stand united, and we need to have communication across the board. So I'm hoping that we get this budget done and that everyone can work together with it.
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Councilman McCormick will try to be back. He had to leave for a minute.
Okay. All right. Was there any other comments at this point? Or we can, okay, we can move on. Other suggestions?
Mayor, I've been trying to crunch the numbers, again, to make this work. If we add the police interceptors back in with the upfitting, that's gonna add $120,000 back into what I had put on, to cut, which means, instead of a $220,000 decrease, it'll only be a $100,000 increase. So, that being said, if that would leave us, if you increase the revenues on those suggestions earlier, and you, subtract those from the 349,800 that we had as a deficit, that would leave us with $175,200. All right. So, no, sir. That's $175,200, in the red. So, $175,200, if we only had a decrease in the expenditures of $100,000, that would put us at $75,200. Now, that's a lot closer, but the problem is, when we add back in the cost of living increases and the police department pay increases, that's adding back $58,976. Which gives us, we're in the red, $134,176, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Hang on, if I just, I'm looking over the spreadsheets that you provided, Councilman, and I just have a couple of, I guess, comments regarding the suggested cuts. Okay. Trying to, first one, be sure. I am a little concerned about cutting contingency in certain departments. If we were going to cut contingency from anywhere, I would say general government, 150. And if you had to, then I would say the contingency out of the Public Works Department, which is 10,000. And the reason why I say that those two departments, you know, I would be more comfortable with cutting is because a lot of the public works falls under the water and sewer. So if they just kind of all flow together sometimes, because the guys are, who are in public works, they're being paid out of public works, but they do work for water, and they do work for sewer departments as well. But as far as contingencies in the police department, in any of the water and sewer and the spring accounts, I would recommend not cutting those contingencies. Hopefully, we don't ever have to use those contingencies, but we've had to this year. We've had to in the police department. We've had to in the sewer department when they had to fix this line out there. And those are exactly the types of things that we need the contingencies for. Of course, I can, Jordan can speak up on this more so, but like I said, if we were going to cut contingencies, I would prefer to do it out of the general government 150 and public works and leave the rest in there. The cut from line 408 that you have suggested, which is the police department other equipment, you have to take out the entire $13,000, and I know that the chief's vehicle does need that push bumper and the brush guard, but the cameras for the CID or the patrol cargo boxes that the police department wanted to purchase, they don't have anywhere to store any of their firearms currently. So the boxes would go to not only protect the officer in the, in the event that they have somebody pulled over and, somebody might have access to their equipment, but just for everybody's safety, I believe that would be one of the main reasons why they would get the patrol cargo boxes. And then the rapid mobile fingerprint system, all of this equipment, I guess my recommendation is to not cut that, because all of that equipment that the police department is trying to purchase is either for the safety of the officer, the protection of the vehicle and equipment and firearms, and for the protection of the officer who is performing any sort of a search or an arrest based on that mobile fingerprint system. It's just a win-win for not only the police officers or the department, but for the citizens who expect certain services from them. So
the suggestion was not necessarily cut it. It was to try to take it out of fiscal year 21. So whenever you said that we can't do that, I added $120,000 back in, and the math I was just doing, that included that, because 13,000, 73,000, and 34,000 is 120,000. So that was being placed back into the budget, which still gives us our shortfall.
Now this line 616 that you have in here, which is for the rental of equipment for the sewer line. I know that if you have it only to cut by $1,000, is that 616? Is that the rental of equipment and vehicles? Okay, I just want to make sure that we've got the same one. But we don't, the sewer or the water or sewer department doesn't have to rent equipment very often. And one of the reasons for the backhoe purchase would be to help offset the expenditures of the rental equipment that we do have to rent. But how much is it to rent a backhoe for 3 days?
Yes.
Yes.
Not something like this, it's almost
Okay.
between 800 and 1,000, 1,200.
Okay. Yes, I guess my point is rental of equipment, $1,000 could be 3 days worth of work when they're trying to repair sewer lines. So,
Personal use is 900 for 4 days, so we just returned one.
Oh,
That's, it's on residential.
right.
Well, again, that was based off, we budgeted 5,000 last year, we didn't.
Right, and we didn't use any, right.
Any at all.
Well, sewer lines, rental of equipment, we don't have a bypass pump, if the lift station goes down. Obviously, don't go there, but therefore, if we need that pump, we need money to rent that pump, and I don't care digging. If we had to use that contingency, that's why it's there, but you never know when that time may come.
But we're advocating putting contingency back in along with, the $1,000 more, on the repairs and maintenance. And look, I'm not, again, not trying to pick on anybody at all. Honestly, we're trying to fund everything that we possibly can. That's the reason why I didn't want to see the mini excavator or truck taken out. We're trying to balance it as best we can, but, there are 6 different personalities up here that want different things funded, so these were just the best suggestions I could come up with. That didn't seem to make the worst impact.
Yes.
For the benefit of the folks at home that don't have this particular paper right in front of them, can you give the highlights of your balanced budget, the highlights of how that differs from what they've been presenting for the last 3 meetings?
Sure. So, again, as I read earlier, we were looking at trying to increase the revenue by the sale of public works building.
No, I meant the mayor's budget, his zeroed out budget.
I
Can you
can't,
highlight that itinerary?
I can't speak to that because
I'm sorry, I was addressing April and the mayor.
Do you want,
Did you want me to just go through?
Go through the highlights of how it's different from what was proposed the last 3 meetings. The highlights, to show how you got to a zero budget. Because we're hearing everybody else's proposals, but nobody's heard the mayor's proposal. And I think that's important because people don't have that to read the very fine print that's very difficult to read.
Did you want me to read that there?
yeah, you probably faster than I could focus it, myself,
Well,
but,
the print's a little small. It's a little harder.
because I can go by the red, but then I gotta find in my Bible.
All right, well, the mayor's proposal for, which would be version 2 listed on your sheet, the only difference in the revenue that the mayor had changed was adding $5,000 to line 25 for the police department forfeiture fund. This was just something added just actually this week. The police department was able to receive some of their forfeited funds, and they deposited the money into the checking account, which turns around and that has to be used for certain expenditures, but that expenditure was offset in the PD forfeiture expense account. So as far as the revenue, the only thing that was added was $5,000 for the PD forfeiture fund. The total revenue for general government would be $1.614 million. And the planning and zoning revenue would be $162,530. I said those 2 did not change. The lost revenue collected did not change, which is $575,450. And then moving down to the asset accounts, which are the fund balances that have been budgeted and what we are using. And starting on line 98 is $804,685, and that had also not been touched from the last couple of meetings. And water and sewer revenue starting on line 106, that was not changed either. And the revenue for that fund is $1,976,074. For a total revenue in all of the funds would be $5,133,675. Now, with the $5,100,000, well, I'll get to that to the last page. I'll wrap it up that way. On page 2, you'll see under the legislative, beginning on line 145, the mayor's proposal is to keep the Sunflower Festival Committee at $2,500 per the request of Councilmember Lyle. The Beautification and Tree Committee, the mayor has recommended to cut that to $6,000. And being that the Beautification and Tree Committee was formed for the Tree City USA and to be able to receive that designation, which to maintain that designation constitutes a $2 per capita person. Therefore, the budget should be no more than $6,000 if we round up to approximately 3,000 people who live in the city of Statham. His recommendation of the $6,000 is to take $5,000 of that $6,000, would go towards any tree and limb removal, and leaving $1,000 for beautification purposes, for flowers, for mulch, for bushes or whatnot that need replaced throughout the city for the fiscal year '22. And under line 168, under capital, that was added last meeting, and the mayor went ahead and kept in the $4,800 that was requested by Councilmember Venable for a new projection screen, which and a printer for the council members to keep here at City Hall. The computers, Mayor Piper suggests decreasing that, that's line 169, from $2,000 down to $1,000. And Mayor Piper suggests that all council members were issued iPads, and also the mayor is in need of a new computer, and the computer that he is currently utilizing, which is aged, could become the computer that City Hall or City Council members could utilize, because once it was wiped clean, I guess council members wouldn't need to put a bunch of documents and stuff on it, so it wouldn't, bog up the computer. So, he suggests removing, taking that from $2,000 down to $1,000. Under account 150, which is general government, the mayor suggests adding back the contingency, which is line 250 of $5,000, and to increase the salary expenditure on line 186 from $166,000 to a total of $175,000, and those increases include the cost of living and then the COVID pay for all of the employees. Nothing was changed from the accounting department, which is line 258 and 260. Nothing was changed in municipal court, which is department 265. And moving down to the police department, which begins on line 335 of page 2, Mayor Piper just suggests adding the cost of living increases and increasing the starting pay for the police department, as well as a COVID bonus for all employees, including their support staff, for working through the COVID pandemic last year, and the increase for the salaries total to include the cost of living and the increase in starting pay and the COVID pay bonus is $499,000. That is up $39,000 from the last meeting. And Mayor suggests keeping the peace officer's annuity, so that is in line 347 that Councilman Venable wanted to put back into the budget last meeting, and the mayor agrees with that. Going on page 3, line 376, it's in red, and you'll see $5,000 increase from the last meeting, and that is the PD forfeiture fund, and that is the expense that offsets the revenue that we added on the first page. And also, Mayor Piper suggests adding back contingency to the police department for any unforeseen expenses or emergency purchases purpose. That's on line 409. Public Works Department, Mayor Piper suggests adding the cost of living for the entire Public Works Department. And it says in there, increased starting officer pay, and honestly, I just copied and pasted from the last one, so obviously they're not officers, they're public works, but to increase the public works salaries, cost of living, and to also pay all of the Public Works Department employees COVID pay bonus for a total of $263,700. And professional services on line 440. And Mayor Piper wants to add $10,500 for tree removal, and that was actually moved from the beautification committee into its own line item for the FY22 budget year. Part of the expenses, or part of the budget for the tree committee last year was to include tree removal. I don't believe that those were utilized, so the reason for the separation is because, we needed to make sure that the funds that were set aside for tree removal, was spent on that service if needed. The siren, which is on line 464, the mayor recommends removing the electricity for the siren, which decreases the budget by $1,200. He also recommends removing the capital, which is on line 475 for the siren, and the mayor would prefer to just sell the siren on Gun Deals and try to get back any of the money that was spent on the actual purchase of the siren, and instead purchase weather radios for those who do not have access to cell phones or an alert system. Barrow County Emergency Alert System is free to anyone who lives in Barrow County, and we've been trying to push that a little bit more for people to sign up for the alert system through Barrow County, because they can, you can receive alerts, real-time weather alerts on your cell phone, email, and on your home phone. But in the event that somebody, a resident does not have a home phone, but they still would like to receive the alert, they would be able to receive a weather radio from the city at no cost. The $1,000 that is left in there is to purchase 25, I think it's what it was, Mayor, right?
Yeah.
25 weather radios.
And there's no ongoing maintenance like you would have on the siren and the weekly tests, and then who can hear it, who can't hear it. If it goes bad, it has to come down, all that. So,
Are you talking about getting rid of the weather siren altogether?
and those who do not have the ability with cellular, because not everybody has smartphones, so the mature citizens would have the ability to say that they wanted one of these, this is what Barrow County does, and they give them the radio. It's a one-time thing, there's no maintenance involved, and with the understanding if they damage it, then the next one's on them. But they cost less than $40, when I just based my guess on 40, or 25 would be $1,000. If we needed more, it would still be cheaper in the long run, because you don't have an ongoing maintenance contract that you'd have with a weather siren. It's nice to have, it's nice to think about, but there's a finite amount of income we have, and we have to make things work this year. Next year, we may be in a whole better boat, but I think it's just one of the things that I think is a smart thing to do. All right, so.
Now I'm on line 479, which is sidewalks and crosswalks. And the mayor removed the sidewalk project on Hammond Road from Smith to Broad and 8th, I guess in the end of Peter Street. The mayor says that, yes, he does like the idea of sidewalks, but he would prefer to have it better planned and based on the current budget. That the city should wait until the city has a better plan in place and the availability of funds before we spend $130,000 on new sidewalks. And then also on line 485, just adding back the contingency to the Public Works Department. Moving down to line 518 under recreation, the mayor would like to decrease the recreational activities from $15,000 down to $7,500. That would leave $2,000 per concert if there were 3 concerts, and to allow $1,500 for Halloween and for Christmas purchases. Under parks, that would be line 529. Mayor Piper removed the playground equipment and believes it should be planned for upcoming fiscal years, and items such as playground equipment or upgrading parks could also be utilized through the use of impact fees. The mayor increased line 531, which is for the Veterans Park and the Town Monument, from $500 up to $900, And that increase is to purchase some additional new flags for the Veterans Memorial. There were no changes in the permitting or inspection. There were no changes in the library. There were no changes in planning and there was a change in planning and zoning, line 569. That increased from $15,000 to $17,900. It was just a slight increase of $2,900. And the reason for the increase is just in case if the city decides to move forward with the impact fees, we would need to add back in some hours to offset the cost of the impact fees, or just to go through the process. Line 589, under the SLOSS expenditure, let's see, the $80,000 that was in there for paved streets has been removed. And the idea of that is because one of the projects that we really need to take care of is the project behind Casco's. So to be able to do this one particular large of a project, that it was just better suited to put the $80,000 in other departments and for that particular sewer and stormwater project that is going to be very expensive. Under sewer, which is Department 431, line 603 added back the contingency for that. Line 624 added back the contingency for the sewer lines. Line 637, under water expenditure salaries, that is an increase from $56,000 to $59,000. And that is for one full-time, one part-time employee, the cost of living, and the COVID bonus. And line 646, deferred compensation, $2,500 was added back to that department and that line item because we will have one new participant beginning FY22. Also, in the water department, contingency was added back. And under water lines, contingency was added back. And under the spring, the contingency was added back. So if we look on the very back page, which is page 5, if you look in the red letters, I guess, down towards the bottom half of that page, the revenue under the mayor's recommended budget is, total revenue is $4,328,990. You add the $804,685 of the fund balance that's used for $5,133,675. But we do need to reduce that by $575,450 because that is fund balance that will be that would be SLOSS 2018 expected revenue that we will not utilize in FY22. That goes into the restricted account to be used to pay the sewer bond. So the total adjusted budget, this is what the budget amount will be, is $4,558,225, and the total expenditures is $4,558,225 with a difference of $0.
Questions?
Mayor, I think in a lot of ways we're on the same page on some of these, because there are some cuts in here that I would like to see not happen. I think the big goals that we're trying to accomplish with water, the police department, I think those are fundamental things that we can budget. Again, I'm just one opinion up here, but I think those are things that definitely need to be budgeted. I would like to see, I don't have a problem with cutting out the projector, and the stuff here for City Hall. And I'm not sure exactly where we can find the money based upon this budget, but I would like to see the items for the parks.
Which one?
151, beautification tree committee. Councilman McCormick did say that he would be willing to take $12,000 out of there, which would have lowered the initial amount from 45 to 33. But I would like to see us be able to spruce up our parks.
The parks would be, Department 620. So that would be like on line 525, 527.
So right now, we got repairs and maintenance, for parks at 4,000. It's on page 3. And then the general supply materials, I think that was going to be moved to capital if it was not cut out. But that was for playground equipment and disc golf, repair the basketball court.
Is there maybe one thing that we can do this year? For this next fiscal year?
I'm not against beautification. I'm not against playground equipment. I am not against sprucing up the basketball court. The reason I did the way I did it, 1, we're required to be balanced. 2, it was mentioned in one of the meetings that it was found out that we can get private grant, okay? I don't know how much that is. All I know is this council was faced with X amount income, and we have X amount that we have to, as a government, provide a service to our citizens. That means respectable water, sewage. I don't know about anybody else. If I flush my toilet and it don't work, it just ruins my day. Absolutely puts me on the wrong side of the fence real quick.
Well, no one's advocating cutting
So,
there.
no, I know that. I'm just saying, we have an obligation of services. And I think if we did cuts in those services or in those departments, I don't believe that we can provide what this government and any government is responsible for, and that is to provide services to the taxpayers. So if we can work to get private grants, we have 19 is before the partners right now, 2019. And so there is a very good chance that fiscal 2020 could be done in 3 to 4 months because there's been a lot of cleanup done on it. And that means that some auditor could be working on 2021. I have a commitment from Senator Ginn and the GDOT that if we can get that point by the end of this year, that they can get us LMIG monies, 100% for this year, and he's made a commitment for 70% of what we would have gotten last year. So we are diligently working towards that. So if we can get LMIG money, we can start getting some road repair done. That's why I said, okay, we got a project down here that's affecting stormwater and sewer. And at some point, that end of town in Casco's is gonna be in big trouble. We know about it, we're obligated to fix that. And that is probably a $250,000 project if it's a dime. Unfortunately, because of the size, we have to subcontract that. So we've had engineers involved. We've also been working with engineering group on Railroad Street because of the stormwater problem that's down there. So, you know, we've got all these things that are going on in the background, but it doesn't cost much to get these estimates done and to get the engineering groups that we have under contract to come and look and see what we need to do. What costs the money has to come out of this budget. $250,000, $300,000. We want to do a well, and we have a very good, viable location that's in Hillman Park that could yield us a very good amount of water that would put us on our way to independence. And the more independent we are, those are monies that can come in that we're not given to Winder or to the county. So if we can get private grants, and we have people in this community that can write those grants or find the people, that's the kind of volunteer thing that brings the unity that we need in this community. But I, and along with the other 5 members of this council, are obligated to the public to put a balanced budget together. And you can't do it by continually adding and adding and adding. When you have X amount coming in, you can only spend so much going out. And I'm not against all of these things, but there is a time for it. And there is still some monies in there, and some things can still be done. And if we can get private grants, we can do more. And once we get our audits up to date, which we are so close, then we can get monies to do so much more. And that's my reason. Like me, not like me, but that's what I was tasked, and we finished this late this afternoon. So, that is what it is.
Putting in just some, I guess, kind of balancing between what Councilman Venable and, if, okay.
Yeah, I would personally rather see capital on line 168, projector streaming mic system for council.
168?
Yes. I'd rather see that go back to community, into the parks.
Well, I actually reduced that to 2,800. All right.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you take the whole $4,800 and put it towards the parks. I'd rather it benefit more people than just a handful. We are to stream, you know.
Let me tell you what I've put in here so far. I'm taking basically the mayor's column and I'm adding in some of the numbers back. So under the beautification and tree committee, I put $25,000 in. I know Councilman McCormick said he would be okay with $33,000, so hoping that maybe he would be okay with $25,000. I left $25,000 in the beautification and tree committee. I left $2,800 in line 168 for the capital. Now, we could take that out and put the $2,800 towards another whatever. I removed all of the contingency for general government, which is line 250. That's $5,000, so I removed that contingency. Now the recreational activities on line 518, I took that down to $2,000 under the idea that maybe we could put off concerts this year and just save the money for the Halloween and the Christmas festival. I added $10,000 to line 529, which would be the parks expenditure.
All right, one moment, sorry, let me catch up.
What's the
Line 518,
518?
that would be under recreational activities,
How much?
2,000. I left enough in there for both Halloween and Christmas, since those are the two biggest ones. And then on line 529, which is under the parks, I added 10,000. Maybe that would be a good piece of playground equipment, or maybe it would be to be able to redo the basketball courts, and maybe you want to save the playground equipment for next year or whatever. But it would leave 10,000 in for that. Those are the only changes I made, and the difference is negative 11,500. With that being said, I'm not opposed to increasing a little bit of the revenue. And when I say a little bit, not $174,000. The revenue, we spent a lot of time trying to come up with those numbers, because we want to be as accurate as possible. We don't want to just throw more revenue in there because we want to buy more stuff. So, Jordan and I have spent, like I said, a lot of time, looking at the development, looking at the houses, thinking of when houses are going to be put in, and when will we be collecting those funds, because even when a developer comes in here and something's approved, it might be 3 months before we get our first check for anything. So, and then permit fees, that could be a year down the road, and it might be in the next fiscal year. So it's hard to really determine a lot of the revenue. I'm not opposed to increasing it a little bit. And by a little bit, under the building permits, which is line 57, right now we have $18,000 in there. I'm not opposed to increasing that to 25,000. Business licenses, we could probably increase that to 62,000. And I know it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but like I said, I don't want to go over. I would rather have extra at the end of the year than being over budget.
What, I'm sorry, say those line items one more time.
Line 57, under planning and zoning, building permit, I would increase that to 25,000.
So that's an increase of 7,000.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And then I would increase business licenses, which is line 59. I would increase that to 62,000. Under the new construction permit, $55,000 would probably be about all I would be comfortable doing. Or let me see, what's do you have a calculator?
Just my phone.
Okay. 960 times, just say 4.
3,840.
Okay, so I'll add 3,840 to 52,800. That would be 56,640. All right. So by increasing that little bit of a revenue and not overextending ourselves, that actually puts us in a positive of $1,340. So if we wanted to take that $1,340, then we could put it in another If you want to put it back into the beautification committee, if you want to put it under the parks, if you would like to, you know, whatever, but it's at least, yes, it'll be balanced, but it also kind of gives and takes and adds a little bit more to the tree committee, adds some to the parks, removes contingency from general government. It does decrease the recreational activities, but it still allows a couple $1,000 for the Halloween and the Christmas festival.
So could we take the $4,000 from repairs and maintenance on line 527 and put that towards,
I did not, yes,
because we're already funding $25,000 for repairs and maintenance of community centers and parks.
all right, well, if you put in, you put in 2,500 there. And then, you want to take that 1,500 and add to the general, or the general supplies or the recreational activities? I didn't hear what you said.
I want to take the 4,000.
We've got to have some repairs and maintenance in there. That's just for general repairs and maintenance, for fence repairs, for
So the 25,000 won't cover that?
2,500?
25,000 for upgrades to each building.
No.
Where's the 25,000, what line is it?
505?
I'm sorry.
505?
Oh, I was looking on 527, I'm sorry.
25.
Community centers.
Yeah, you were.
Oh, okay. You were in community centers. I was in parks. Okay.
Thank you, 25,000.
He wants to take the 4,000 that's in the parks, maintenance, repair and maintenance, out. Am I correct on that?
Yes, I mean, isn't part of the 25,000 going to be repairing and maintaining the community centers at the parks?
No, those are going to be different things. The community centers are actually the buildings. The parks would be just the parks. The town monument, the veterans park, the dog park, what other parks do we have? Like outdoor spaces. So like, we had to have some fence repaired, you know, that type of thing would come out of the park expenditure of the $4,000. And we can take that down to 2,500. And then if you wanted to take that $1,500 and put it somewhere else for just for balancing purposes. Now the the repairs and maintenance for the community centers under line 505. That's just investing in in both actually all three. Let's see. That's a heat pump replacement for the Hillman and for the Robert Bridges and for the community center. No, that's just a heat pump just for the Hillman and Robert Bridges Park. If you want to, let's see. I mean, I guess maybe it's I think we figured about $3,000 to paint, to have somebody come in and paint the Hillman and the Robert Bridges Community Center. Right, about $3,000, $3,500 to paint, to have somebody come in and paint.
Yeah, there's gonna probably be a little bit of insulation, some things like that, but, you know.
Unless you want to do one community center this year and do one community center next year.
Would probably cost more money to get people out here one time and get it done.
We can't rent the Robert Bridges in the summer, and we have a lot of requests for it.
We might
The
get
AC cannot keep up.
3-4 weekends out of the whole season maybe.
Which is why we have the Robert Bridges Park on here as well, because we would like to be able to rent it because it would bring in more revenue for the city. Of course, I mean, you have the expense of getting it upgraded, and replacing the heat pump and getting it painted and putting in the insulation, but, I'd say we could at least take $3,000 out of that, because we had additional $3,000 for other repairs and maintenance, and that's just because once you open up a wall to repair something, you're gonna find something else that needs fixed. Would you like me to remove some of that? And then I can kind of tell you where I am on my numbers.
If you did that, where would we be?
How much would you
But,
want to take
I
out,
mean, if you
$3,000?
Well, if you took $3,000 out of there, based upon what's written right here, we can't get all that, I mean, if it's $3,500 a pop, that's $7,000 to paint both of them,
Correct.
all right? Basically $5,000 a piece, $10,000 for the HVAC units,
Correct.
and then we're looking at $5,000 for toilets, sinks, and wall covering,
Correct.
and then an additional $3,000 for other repairs. I mean, are we gonna be able to get it done for $22,000, that's the question.
We hope. Gary, without touching that right now, I'm at a positive $2,840.
So if we added that back to the beautification, what would that finish at?
The tree committee,
$2,840.
Sorry for doing that, I can't get it.
Judge, when you're talking about the flags and stuff, the Veterans Park, I know that the Legion has said that if we need these flags down here, they will about that, and also Woodman of the World has put out doing that too.
Okay. I know that the Legion provides some of those flags,
I think
and we do the American, and I think part of that maintenance is also the lighting, but I can get with Robert Wilson and ask what they do,
Yeah.
so there's no
Also,
duplication.
Women of the World used to give a lot towards, I know that French flag poles down here, and flags are a lot cheaper than flag poles. So I know that they may possibly do that if anyone knows anyone. I know someone who belongs to Women of the World, I could ask them about it.
Yeah, they do. We just go through them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Especially this one out here,
Yeah,
you know,
wind
it starts getting frayed, and as soon as we start seeing the first signs of it getting frayed, then we take it down and replace it, because just out of respect. Okay, Gary,
If you would put them in contact with me, that would be,
Sure.
that would be great.
I have a total of $27,840 in the beautification. I left $2,800, under the capital for legislative, for, you know, if you want to, take out the $2,800 and put somewhere else, maybe just get a printer or something for City Hall right now and wait on the projection screen and the projector.
I would prefer to do that. I think that more people would benefit from the parks than the projector.
We may have another printer across the street, because I did get one that worked that I was able to give to the police department. So we may have one over there. We have another computer back here.
The only thing
I
we
know the
do,
one printer across the street wasn't working, and I think we threw it out, but
we just need a printer.
I put in $300. I left
Yeah.
$300 and I've got $2,500.
We need a printer that can do air print from our iPads.
So you would need wireless, basically.
Right.
That leaves $2,500 positive.
I'm gonna get back to the police cars. I know we're saying we don't have enough money out of this year's budget, but do we have money in the bank? Because we can fund money forward to cover it, and it's great to have money in the bank, which the city does have money in the bank, but it's to be used also. It's not a savings account necessarily, because government is not supposed to profit into a savings account. So if we could look at possibly taking care of the two vehicles fully from the current general account would be, I think, more reasonable, because we're nickeling and diming, and we're moving, and we're because if you look around, this room looks beautiful. Kudos, it looks very nice. There was money spent in here that only a few are going to see. And we're arguing over giving back money to the community, to the parks, where a lot of people can use it. If we're going to build a kingdom within and not take care of the kingdom outside, what are we doing? We have to start facilitating for community use also. Governments do that. Governments have rec departments. Governments have seniors. They have police force. They have sheriff's department. They have water. They have all of it. All of it. And that's what we really need to start looking at, is what on the everyday can we provide for people? Good sidewalks, where branches are not slapping in your face, sidewalks are not coming up, parks, like you said, yeah, we need new AC. Let's look at doing some of those things, painting. These things have value. I'm looking in here and I see the value of what beautification did in here. I want to see what value beautification is going to do out in our community, where there's over 3,000 people, plus more, are going to benefit from it. So I'm just wondering if we cannot pay for the vehicles out of the bank account.
We could, but according to our auditor, what we have on a rolling basis is about 2.5 months of reserve, and we should have closer to 4 months reserve if something happened. So we take monies away from that, we're not going to have as much reserve. It's not a savings account. Everything gets paid out of the general fund. These are line items. There's not an account for every one of these line items. So there's not a checkbook that's related to it. These are line items that you are planning on spending or planning on coming in. But when you have to spend from those line items, it comes out of the general fund. So if we take, and you can probably explain it better, but if you take from that, then your reserves have been depleted, and then what if later on? So, yes.
The bottom line is that we have to budget for it. We have to budget for everything that we purchase. We can't just say, hey, we've got, X amount of dollars in the bank, let's go and spend it. It doesn't work that way. We do have multiple bank accounts, multiple checking accounts, but aside from the general fund and the utility fund, every single other account is restricted, which means it is designated for something specific, which means we cannot use it unless it's for those specific projects or those specific items. So it's not. We just don't have money sitting there. The general fund is the operating account. So I don't know, and I think maybe part of the confusion is each month when I provide council with a list of all of our accounts that, that we have currently in the bank and what the balance is and what we've received in interest. You're talking 23 cents a month in interest. If we're going to have to put money in a restricted account, well, at least let's put it in a money market account to try to get a little bit of interest. So I think some of the confusion is because I provide this information to council and citizens that maybe it seems like we've just got money that, why aren't they using it? Well, because it's restricted and we can only use it for certain things. The general account, our main general fund, that is our operating account. The money that goes in there is the money that we transfer from the utility fund into the general account for operating costs. Now, some revenue does get put into the general fund, but it is never enough to offset the expenses of the city. So basically, the general account is like a revolving loan. Okay, so we've always got money coming in and we've always got money coming out. But that is not an account to look at to say that we've got just money sitting there. Neither is the utility fund, because the utility fund is where we're getting all of the money to offset the operating expenditures in the general government account. Now, going back to exactly what the mayor said, yes, if we shut down tomorrow and we had no revenue coming into the city, but we still had to operate, we've got to figure out a way to operate when we have nothing coming in. So the $2 million that we've got sitting currently in our utility fund, which looks like we've got a lot of money, even though a lot of it's being transferred into the general account, is not going to be enough for us to last more than a month and a half to maybe 2 months. So when we're trying to build that up, because yes, auditors like to see between 4 and 6 months of reserve, meaning that if this government shut down tomorrow, how long can we operate before hell breaks loose and everything is in chaos? Now we're sitting at about 45 days. So we've got to build that cash reserve up. And it is going up. And it's been going up the last year since I've been here. I've been watching it go up. But it's got to continue to go up because the city has got to be in a strong financial position that if something happens and everything goes downhill, that we can still operate and protect the citizens for the next 6 months. We're not quite there. We're getting there, but we're not quite there. So we don't, if we want to, now, we do have multiple accounts, and when council, whenever they were set up, I mean, one account's been there since 1983. One account was opened in 1995. I actually had Sandra help me look last week, trying to go through old minutes to see when they were opened, and at the time that they were open, what were they designated for specifically. The problem is we don't know. So we have an equipment fund. And there's not a whole lot of money in it, but there's a little bit of money in it, but it is a restricted account, and we can only use it for equipment. What kind of equipment? Police equipment? Public works, equipment. We don't know what the intention of that account being opened was, because it was opened in 1992. So because they're restricted, once we figure out what its intended use was, then we can ask council to say, okay, we have to vote because it's restricted. Council has to vote to release those funds to be utilized. So regardless of if we want to purchase 2 new police interceptors for hopefully, a couple of new officers, then we have to budget it regardless. And even if there's a fund balance, at the end of this fiscal year, we don't just get a blow. Okay, that gets rolled back into the general government, because as of June 30th of every year, if there's anything left, it gets rolled right back into the general fund, and everything is started over with the next fiscal year. So unless you budget for a fund balance, it's not going to be used. So regardless, we've got to budget everything. And I'm not trying to be a party pooper, or I'm just trying to help understand the process of budgeting. So.
Now, on the other side of that coin, if we have revenues that come in that we're not expecting, the council can do a
We
budget
can amend
amendment.
it. So let's just
And
say
maybe
9
do a
months down the
project.
road, and we decide, and I'm like, hey, council members, we're looking really good. We are $150,000 over budget as of right now. Let's amend this budget and count this revenue. So, in 6, 7, 8 months down the road, if we need to amend the budget to account for that extra revenue, we can do that. That's what we did last year.
Possibly do another another
Yes.
project that we
Exactly.
can't do today.
Correct, yes.
So that is one of the nice things, but we have to be balanced by June 30th.
Excuse me, so where do we stand with all these little changes that you made? Are we close to being balanced? So we lay the
Hang on,
groundwork up?
actually, we're over. We have $2,500 over, so we could put $2,500 come around. If we added the $2,500 back into maybe,
How about any of the contingencies that you cut? Do you have any that you cut?
I cut general government, which is basically city hall general government. I'm okay with cutting that, because we don't really have anything extra to spend, so we're really good about staying within our budget. So I'm okay with cutting that. I did also cut the public works contingency, and the public works department is also another department that the public works department really isn't doing projects that are expenditure, it's mainly water and sewer and so on, so, public works does a really good job of staying within their budget too.
What did you cut?
Hang on. I think it was I cut 5,000, I left 5,000 in there, so you got 5,000 left in contingency. So if we took that other $2,500, Councilman Venable, and put it back in either the parks or the community centers,
What would be the total on that?
which one? Right now, we have $10,000 in parks for, like, to do playgrounds or, the basketball courts or, whatever you guys wanted to use that for. Right now, there's $10,000 in that, and there's still $25,000 in the community center, so there wasn't anything cut out of that. But recreational activities is $2,000. So did you want to add,
Recreational?
did you want to add it back to parks for $12,500 instead of $10,000? I don't know how much a basketball court repaving or whatever it's called costs.
I don't have the numbers with me here tonight, I didn't bring them. I would like to put as much as we can back into, making sure the parks are taken care of.
Let me put that back in there for right a second.
I would like to see us purchase playground equipment and get the blacktop, resurfaced and disc off over here at, Robert Bridges Park.
That puts $12,500 in the parks.
I don't know that we can do anything with $12,500. I haven't really looked over this budget, haven't had it very long. I know y'all are finishing up today, but.
I can email this, what I've got, and I said, as of right now, it is a zero balance. It is budgeted with all the changes that we've just made.
How long would it take to print?
Do you want me to print them before you leave?
Six copies for everybody.
I mean, I can probably have them printed in the next 5 minutes. I just have to email them to my students.
Yeah, but Dwight hasn't had the opportunity to be here.
As I said, 6
I know, but through Access meeting, you might not agree with half of the things that are in there.
Anybody have any questions about what we?
No, I mean, get a copy for everyone.
It's not going to get voted on until council.
Next Tuesday,
Okay.
at your list.
And there's been a lot of changes since the last budget, so I think we need time to go through it and look at it. Again, there's, a lot of good in this budget, I'll say that. You know, water's funded, police department's funded, public works is funded. But I've talked a lot, I mean, I don't know if the rest of the council has anything to say.
But by the way, as far as the well, the gentleman that's doing that, has applied and he sent us paperwork. Jordan, I don't wanna mess up what it is, but it's something to do with the permits with the state.
So application to do the drilling, be approved by the state.
So, you know, there shouldn't be an issue because it is land that is owned by the city. So there's no need to go and get, you know, easement from, there are a couple that are very viable that might be a secondary or a third well. They would probably require talking with the landowner and working something out, with them. But the one that we have at Hillman, he feels pretty strongly with, so he's applied with the state.
I would like to say, I don't know if anybody knows that the planning commissioner, Tony Price, in Broadville, him and his wife had COVID, and he did not recover, so he has now passed, so. Don't know if anybody knows him, but, you know, if you wouldn't mind, say it's down for everyone, family.
Commissioner, Joe Gooden? No.
Planning commissioner.
Okay. Probably not. There's a county commissioner then.
Oh, no, county. Planning commissioner.
I've heard the name, but I've never.
Yeah, just goes to show you that COVID, you think you got it, you think you're cured, and all of a sudden, boom. Oh, God, my ears are feeling sick.
Been talking about. Been talking about. We don't know. I mean, that's the first, that's the next step. We don't know. So, if we go spend all that money, who's going to protect it? As far as I know, that the property owners, they have their right to it, it's a state law. So, yeah. So, we rely on the state level, so that they should be able to run.
Want me to get a review or
I'm not going to ship, but I'm not going to be selling black book, so unless we can get a grant for the money company in it.
Okay.
Well, the landlord? I don't want a wire, but a road.
Everything I had? You don't have anything in your head?
I don't know.
At this time, you don't know.
Yeah, way past.
We have a people.
It was
We have
already
people.
down.
That's all.
That's it. So you did a good job, Gary.
Yeah.
So,
We don't need anybody else.
that's it, there may be possible, right?
That's
You're supposed to have that done, but I don't know what you
still
do.
not happy with it. I want to see the illustration.
Well, come to it again.
I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know,
I'm sure Mike wants to.
maybe a good option.
I mean, you know,
We can look at, we can guarantee you something may not work. So,
Maybe do it for us, but I'm sure I got some input. I'd like some
yeah.
more time to go through this, and just carry it.
Exactly.
Well, it really doesn't have to be past Tuesday night, we can have a town meeting. Just to pass it, if you wanna go back. I mean, we just have to.
Sure.
Have a week, well, we have 2 weeks after.
I go through my email, but somebody else said that
But we
they
can
can
postpone it for a week and go one more, go through and pass it. I mean, I'm fine with whatever y'all want to do, but you said you had to.
The only thing I'm concerned about is March, because this one over here seems to get a whole lot of attention. This one over here seems to get less, and it bothers me. Yeah, I gotta have an extra one. Yep. Right.
Thank you.
I mean, just so long as we get it done before the 30th. But I'm fine with whatever y'all want to do.
Did you put the numbers in?
Yes.
Because it still shows 106.7 out of balance.
I put it on the last one, where it says updated version 3. Everything that I added is on the green line. There. It's not, that was the mayor's spot, and I just, yes.
Okay.
So everything every change that I made is highlighted in the yellow box.
So this was
Right here, updated.
under mayor.
It was under mayor, it's version 3 updated.
Now we've changed all the things.
That makes sense? Everybody? That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just that one, so version 3 is the, and everything highlighted in yellow are the changes that we made here.
Are there any other concerns from the council or questions?
Mayor, I know we've had a lot of news over this, but, Councilman McCormick wasn't here to go over most of it. And I know that if I was in the same situation, I would want an opportunity to have a say on the budget. If it's possible, I would like to schedule one more meeting.
I mean, I don't know, I just.
We've had a lot of changes from last week to this week. And we just, as a council, got this right before the meeting, so we really haven't sat down and went over it. And, no doubt with the fact that Mike wasn't here to go over all of this. I think it would be fair to at least let him have a say in it, even if it doesn't change anything, he should have a say. That's just my opinion.
He should.
It's fine with me.
So when would you vote on it? Because next Tuesday is the voting. And if you take another week to look at this, then that means you're gonna have to have a special called meeting to do the voting.
We have to advertise it for 15 days at that point then.
So that would put us into July. To get it in the paper in time for 15 days.
Today's the 10th.
Yes.
I have a suggestion. I know he wasn't able to be here, but Councilman McCormick can look at the budget. If he has questions, he can come up and speak with April or the mayor tomorrow and Monday. Let's try to keep on track, because he already showed the council and the mayor his thoughts on any of the budget, because that's what brewed up before it started being televised. I think if he can look at it on his own time, if he has questions and concerns and suggestions, he needs to bring it up to the city hall and have a professional conversation with the mayor and or April. And let's keep us on track, because that is what the city is supposed to be doing, is getting ready to vote on this budget. And I think tonight you guys made some great compromises, and I think the citizens as a whole, from the feedback I was getting, they're pleased with what they're hearing with the compromises, and then we are so close to a zero budget. Let's fly with this, guys.
My only concern, a good portion of the cuts, I don't have a problem with, you know. But I would like to see, us fully fund the projects at the parks. That's my only holdup.
How much are we short on that?
You know, and I know it's getting late, everybody wants to go home. I think we were at what? We had requested 45 for that, I believe, and we are at, what line item is that?
Yeah,
518.
518?
For
No, 529. You requested 24,000, and we're at 12,500.
But isn't a little bit better than none at all? I mean, seriously, we have X amount of dollars. I mean, there's wants and there's needs. And if we equate what we're trying to do for the citizens, we equate it back to our home. And if we don't have the money, we can't buy stuff. If it isn't in the budget, we can't buy stuff. And we can say, well, we want a new car. Well, we don't have the money, so we drive the same old hoopty that we've been driving. So, I mean, I understand you want to fully fund it, but if the money's not there, then you can do some playground equipment this year. And as I said earlier, if we have extra funds that come in, the council can vote to amend the budget to accept those funds and then have them distributed to maybe do the basketball court. Maybe it's the playground equipment right now, and then the basketball court 6 months from now, or 8 months from now. But a little is better than none. And, I mean, that's my input. I don't get a vote. But that's the way I feel on it. I don't spend money I don't have. And to say, well, I think I'm gonna get an extra $15,000, so I'm gonna count that. It isn't in my bank. I can't count it. So there's wants and there's needs. And I think we've accounted for needs and you've accounted for some wants. And we've got a zero balance. I think that, you know, a couple of days, and that you look at it and, you know, you put back some of the things that Councilman McCormick wanted, you can get everything, but again, some is better than none.
How about this? How about we let, Councilman McCormick look through everything, and if he has any concerns, then if he doesn't feel like those concerns will be met by coming up here, then at that point, we can do a special call meeting. I mean, you know, take one step at a time, baby steps. If he's okay with it, then
I mean, today's the 10th, right? But we still got 2.5, 3 weeks in the month.
We just advertised it being the final budget adoption on the 15th. Yeah, because when we have to advertise it, we have to advertise it for 15 days, because of the public hearing. When you advertise the public hearing, you're also alerting the citizens of when the budget adoption is. And I guess my point is that not that we can't change it, we can, but we've been advertising it for the last, several weeks to months, that it's been on, that it would be, approved on the 15th during the regular, council meeting.
And is it 15 business days? So that would put us into July, which would make us late with the state.
No.
Because if we put it in to be in the paper, if we call tomorrow or send an email, then next Thursday would be one cycle in the legal organ. And at most, you could get 2 cycles.
Well, like I
Where's
said,
my-
this might not even be an issue. Talk to Dwight, see what Dwight says. Trying to make an issue out of something that's not right now.
Councilman Statham, one thing I'm looking at here too, I would not be afraid to take the police department contingency down to $7,000 or $8,000 from 10. I know it's only 2,000 or 3,000. I wouldn't go any less than 7, but because everything else is staying where it is, then, there are less opportunities for the police department to have to go over and utilize the contingency. So if you wanted to take the police department contingency down to $7,000 or $8,000, that would be another 2 or 3 that you could put back into the parks. So that's an idea of another area. I think the court budget is pretty, court budget's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you waiting on? I'm just asking.
I'm just reading the budget.
I was talking to the
Yeah.
mayor.
Just looking at that one last thing. So if you cut it down to 3 and add 3.
You could probably take line 208, which is repairs and maintenance for City Hall. You could probably take that down to 4,000 instead of 5. That's another 1,000, but I wouldn't recommend taking it any lower than that.
So it'd be 4,000 more.
Yeah.
What page is that on again, April, that line item?
Which one?
The, parks?
4 of 5.
529.
It's on page 3. In line 529.
So you take line item 409 down to 7. And you take line item
208 down
208
to 4,000.
down to 4. So that would give an extra 4,000 to take it to 16,500.
I'd like to actually see that go back into recreation, because we did have a couple ideas for Christmas and for Halloween and for doing a concert, and it looks like that would cut down to 2,000. That's not a lot of money for a whole year.
Just to split the difference between the two. Put 2,000 under the recreation and put 2,000 back under the park.
I give you 2,000 on sewer line, you didn't sit when you go home. Is that fair? Just put it back in with for the recreation stuff. I think that'll be fine. Go with that.
So put 2,000 in, Stan, put the 2,000 in to make it 14,500,
Yes, sir.
and then $2,000 into 518,
Yes,
make that $4,000.
yes. And it is balanced.
I think everybody's ready to go home.
Okay.
But are we at a point where we can vote on that?
You want the vote on this tonight?
No, no, I just want to be close enough that we're not,
I guess that's gonna be up to Dwight at this point.
so did you take 2 out of sewer or whatever?
No,
No,
So you did 2 and 2? So 14,500 and 4.
split it down the middle.
We're good for now.
Well, it's balanced for now.
Are we done for the night then?
Believe so.
Anybody else have anything to say? I know I talked all night.
Say, no, yes, and fine.
Make a motion to say.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Well,